The records of a weather-exposed skeleton. Following the example of the ancient priest, who is said to have traveled thousands of miles, caring not for his provisions and attaining the state of sheer ecstasy under the pure beams of the moon. I left my broken house on the river Sumida in the August of the first year of Jokyo, among the wails of the autumn wind. Determined to fall, a weather-exposed skeleton, I cannot help the sore wind blowing through my heart. After 10 autumns in Edo, my mind points back to it as my native place. I crossed the barrier gate of Hakone on a rainy day. All the mountains were deeply buried behind the clouds. In a way, it was fun not to see Mountain Fuji in foggy rain. On this journey, I am accompanied by a young man named Chiri, who kindly assumes the position of a servant and renders what help he can for my benefit along the way. He is a man of true affection and trustworthy enough to be called a friend in need. I left my master's house in Fukagawa, leaving its Basho tree in the care of Mountain Fuji. As I was plodding along the river Fuji, I saw a small child, hardly 3 years of age, crying pitifully on the bank, obviously abandoned by his parents. They must have thought this child was unable to ride through the stormy waters of life, which run as wild as the rapid river itself, and that he was destined to have a life even shorter than that of the morning dew. The child looked to me as fragile as the flowers of bush clover that scatter at the slightest stir of the autumn wind. And it was so pitiful that I gave him what little food I had with me. The ancient poet who pitied monkeys for their cries, what would he say if he saw this child crying in the autumn wind? How is it indeed that this child has been reduced to this state of utter misery? Is it because of his mother who ignored him, or because of his father who abandoned him? Alas, it seems to me that this child's undeserved suffering has been caused by something far greater and more massive, by what one might call the irresistible will of heaven. If it is so, child, you must raise your voice to heaven, and I must pass on, leaving you behind. The day I wanted to cross the river Oi, it rained from morning till night, and I was held up by the swollen river. A long rainy day of autumn, my friends in Edo are perhaps counting the days, thinking of us at the river Oi. The scene before my eyes, roses of Sharon at the roadside, perishing one after another in the mouth of a horse. I traveled a few miles on horseback, half asleep, with my whip swinging by my side, exactly in the manner of the Chinese poet Taoboku. There was an aged moon faintly hanging in the sky, while the foot of the mountains was as dark as a hollow. It was a bit too early even for the first cockcrow, but my dreams were suddenly interrupted when my horse came to the steep precipice of Sayo no Nakayama. Half asleep on horseback, I saw it as if in a dream. A distant moon and a line of smoke for the morning tea. I went down to Ise, where I spent 10 days with a friend named Hu Baku. I visited the outer shrine of Ise one evening just before dark. The first gate of the shrine was standing in the shadow, and the lights were glimmering in the background. as I stood there, lending my ears to the roar of pine trees upon distant mountains. I felt moved deep in the bottom of my heart. In utter darkness of a moonless light, a powerful wind embraces the ancient cedar trees. I do not wear a single piece of metal on my belt, nor do I carry anything but a sack on my shoulder. My head is clean shaven, and I have a string of beads in my hand. I am indeed dressed like a priest, but priest I am not, for the dust of the world still clings to me. The keeper of the inner shrine prevented me from entering the holy seat of the god, because my appearance was like a Buddhist priest. At the bottom of the valley, where the ancient poet Saigyo is said to have erected his hermitage, there was a stream and a woman was washing potatoes. The poet Saigyo would have written a poem even for the women washing potatoes. Towards the end of the day, I stopped at a small tea house where a young woman named Butterfly handed me a small piece of white silk and asked me to write a poem, choosing her name as the subject. A butterfly poised on a tender orchid, how sweetly the incense burns on its wings. I visited the poet at his hermitage. An ivy spray trained up over the hall, and a few bamboos inviting a tempest.